Christian Bale was preparing for his role in American Psycho, dressing the part, hitting the gym, getting his teeth redone. There was just one problem. He didn't actually have the part. Leonardo DiCaprio did. What Went Wrong is a podcast dedicated to the idea that every movie is a miracle. Join Lizzie Bassett and Chris Winterbauer every other week as they unearth the chaos and humanity behind Hollywood's biggest flops and most shocking successes. They aren't here to dunk on your favorite films. They're here to celebrate movies. As the New York Times said, they're movie industry people who truly love films and the people who make them. Listen to What Went Wrong wherever you get your podcasts. This episode of One Hit Thunder is brought to you by DistroKid. Hey there, One Hit Thunder listeners. Are you ready to take your music to the next level? Well, get ready to rock because this episode is brought to you by DistroKid, the ultimate digital music distribution service for artists like you. With DistroKid, you can easily upload your songs or albums to online stores and streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube Music, reaching fans all around the globe. But that's just the beginning. DistroKid offers a ton of awesome features like Hyperfollow, which helps you promote your releases and get pre-saves on your songs all for free. But wait, there's more. The DistroKid app is now available on iOS and Android. With the app, you can manage your releases, track your streaming stats, and even withdraw your earnings, all from the palm of your hand. And for those looking to perfect their sound, check out Mixia. This powerful tool allows you to put the finishing touches on your tracks in minutes, ensuring they sound polished and professional every time. But that's not all. DistroKid has just launched a brand new feature called Instant Share, allowing you to easily share large files securely with collaborators, producers, and more. With Instant Share, you can keep your music streaming at the highest quality while making the best impression possible. So what are you waiting for? Elevate your music career today with DistroKid and unlock a world of possibilities. Possibilities that I know all about because I've been using DistroKid for years. It's seriously great. If you haven't used it before, you're going to love it. And One Hit Thunder listeners get an exclusive offer, 30% off your first year with DistroKid by signing up at distrokid.com/VIP/OneHitThunder. That's distrokid.com/VIP/OneHitThunder.
One hit is all you need to make the money guaranteed, and you can live off royalties forever. And it makes me wonder, is it just a wonder, or is it one hit thunder?
Chris, it's been a while since we've gotten to do like a non-Thundred based bonus episode on the feed. But a documentary came out that I feel like we need to talk about it.
Yeah, it's the Ladies and Gentlemen 50 Years of SNL Music, which I didn't realize this. I thought it was just on Peacock, but I guess they showed this thing like on regular NBC at some point too.
Probably, because it has those commercial breaks and those bumpers before it that like make a ton of sense for live television. But I mean, there's a couple reasons why we should be talking about this, right? Like beyond the fact that there's quite a few artists that we've covered on One Hit Thunder that are discussed in this. You and I are, I would say, still to this day, pretty big SNL heads. Like, I would say that in the grand scheme of people who are in their late 30s, early 40s, we are keeping ourselves more up to date with what happens on SNL than most people in our age range.
Well, I think that this documentary, especially because I'm way more interested in the musical performances on SNL than I am the comedy, which I think I can go back and forth. And I do get the fact that it's live and this is a real accomplishment if you can do anything funny live. I understand the big undertaking that is SNL, and I respect that. But I also got to say, most of the time, it's not funny.
No, I would say, especially right now, this current season, it's like you're pretty much guaranteed that the cold open is going to be good. Very rarely is the cold open a bummer. The weekend update is pretty consistently good. And then it is a coin flip sketch to sketch on like what works and what doesn't.
Coin flip is putting it mildly. Coin flip is giving it a lot of credit. I think, I usually watch. First of all, I wanted to say, do you have regular NBC?
No, I just
Neither
watched
do
it the
I.
next day on Peacock. Yeah, but this documentary, I think, really does. So, like, here's something that I don't think they didn't really cover it too much, but like, you had the first episode of SNL, which was like a huge achievement. There's a great movie on Netflix about the first night of SNL and how much stuff went into making that happen. Do you know what the second episode of SNL was?
Like who hosted and who was a musical guest, you mean?
You would think that that's the question I'm asking. The second episode was just musical guests. It was an hour and a half of live music, and literally the only sketch with the comedians was a sketch of them complaining to Lauren Michaels that they were already being kicked off the show by the second episode.
That's funny because think about it. We all know what Saturday Night Live is. We all know what that is. It's been around for 50 years, so we all know what it is. But take yourself back to 1975. No one knows what this is. And really, a Saturday Night Live, you would think maybe that just means live music. You know, why would comedy necessarily be part of that?
Yeah, the second episode was hosted by Paul Simon and featured musical performances from Art Garfunkel, Randy Newman, Phoebe Snow, and the Dixon Singers. It was like an all musical episode for episode number 2, because I think if you've seen Saturday Night, they kind of depict this a little bit better than I think history has explained. But like, when people watch early SNL, I think the complaint that you often hear is like, it's not that funny. And there's like an element of truth to that. But the reality is like, nothing like this existed before. Like, what SNL was a variety show. And they talk about this really well in that documentary. Before then, a variety show was literally like, here are two pop stars lip syncing to the biggest record. And like, here's a dance number. And here's like a stand-up comic who's going to do like a 2-minute bit. Like, the idea of having a cast of 10 unknown, very abstract comedians building sketches and doing it live, like where they could fumble and screw up in front of an audience on TV, was like completely unheard of.
Well, same thing with the music. Like, there wasn't a lot of people actually playing live. American Bandstand and those kind of things, like they were pretending to play to the recorded version of their song, which is so stupid. And with the Saturday Night live element, you could have performances that were, I don't know, not that great. I've definitely seen people play on SNL where I'm like, I don't know how good that was. I mean, there's a reality factor to it. They showed some of the like Captain Beefheart and stuff where it was like, dude, what is this?
Crickets. The fact that it is absolute crickets, and then you hear a guy just yell shit from the back of the building, is so funny. And like Captain Beefheart, you and I think have both talked about this. An artist that I constantly see listed as like important musicians that like every music fan needs to listen to. And I have tried that Fish Trout Mask album like 3 different times, and it does nothing to me. It annoys me.
I've never even tried.
You have to applaud that, like, I think this documentary makes you appreciate both the music and the comedy of the first 5 years, because like they said, it was like abstract avant-garde. Like, it was like, this is comedy that you have never seen on your television before, because it's really weird and counterculture. And here's a bunch of bands that are like weird counterculture bands. Like, they talked about like being the first place where Devo performed on TV, and like these bands that really didn't get TV time anywhere else.
B-52s, Talking Heads. Yeah.
It's really something kind of cool and worth celebrate. I mean, Patti Smith was one of the first like 20 episodes they had Patti Smith on. Like, finding these kind of very of New York performers. But we got to talk about the first 7 minutes of this documentary, which is so cool.
I thought it was incredible. And I actually saw people online like complaining about how long it was or whatever, but
I could have been fine if it was 2 hours of that. Like, so good.
I didn't have a heads up that that's what it was going to be. And Questlove produced this. Now, the guy is amazing at making music documentaries. If you haven't seen his Summer of Soul documentary, that thing was awesome. He knocked it out of the park again with this one. But that first 7-minute mashup, if you haven't seen it yet, it's like they'll take the music from one performance and put the vocals from another performance on top of it, and they'll, mix it up with dialogue and all kind of stuff. Matt, my favorite moment of that whole thing that I had to make note of was when they mashed up the music of Morris Day and the Time with Michael Stipe singing "Losing My Religion."
Oh,
over
it's
top
so
of it.
good. It's so good.
There was so many moments though where I was like, "What?" Like I honestly got to watch that again because it was all happening so fast that I think maybe I even missed things that were happening during it.
I told Barb that the first 7 minutes of the documentary was like if they hired Girl Talk to just sample a bunch of SNL performances and see what he could create out of it. And it was seamless. It was crazy how good it was. And it was there was a point where I'm like, I can't believe this has been going for 7 minutes, but not in a, this is long. And I just thought for sure it was going to be a 2-minute thing. And then they were going to get started and it just kept going. But it also reminds you of it is literally a who's who of big names that you're man, you it kind of puts into perspective how much history has happened in that building.
I know. And for a guy who goes back and forth on whether I like Saturday Night Live or not, it would be a real bummer if it was gone at some point.
100%. And they do talk about, I forget who it is that says it. Maybe it's David Grohl or someone else, but they're
David. Here we go with the David Grohl.
Good old David Grohl. But you could any episode just by looking at the musical guest, it gives you an immediate snapshot of when was this episode made.
It is the ultimate. If you could tell me if there's one thing that I could do in my life musically, a place I could perform once, SNL would be the choice, I think. Because you're stamped into that forever. If tomorrow your band broke up, it's I played on Saturday Night Live. Hey, let's watch it on YouTube. It's Thanksgiving. Hey, let's watch when I played on SNL. That was pretty cool, right? I just think it's the coolest thing you could do.
And again, the variety. Literally, I love the story of Adele because it does capture they have legitimately broken big names on that show. People have gone from a minor or modest performer and then they have an absolute killer performance on SNL. And it's SNL, I think, is now to musicians what they used to say the Johnny Carson Tonight Show was to comics. You show up and in one night, your whole life could change from that performance.
And it's pretty cool. They do take chances on people that, before they're the biggest thing in the world. Because even when they talked about Nirvana, David Geffen called Lorne Michaels this band sold 60,000 albums last week. Then they sold 100,000 this week. That's a lot of albums. Don't get me wrong. But still, they weren't yet at that millions of albums. They were still on the start of their climb to the top, and it was that behind the scenes footage of the first time they played, the stuff with Charles Barkley, because Charles Barkley was the host. I thought that footage was incredible. So good.
I also really because I thought that this was only going to be about the musical performances. And for the most part it is, but they do also tap in to the musical sketches and the evolving history of that. That's been there since the Belushi days. Yeah. And I think that they do a great job of highlighting the Blues Brothers, right? A thing that Lorne Michaels didn't even want to put on the show.
Because it wasn't funny.
Yeah, he's this isn't funny. I'm not going to put it on the show. But then, it becomes the first SNL movie, and it's still to this day considered the best SNL movie. And it's that element of the Blues Brothers starting off with it's just we're just going to be as ridiculous and over the top as we can. I will never say that I watched their performance of Soul Man and I laugh, but I have watched that SNL performance of Soul Man so many times because it's like the most energy I've ever seen two guys give on television.
Is that, dude, I mean, I guess I never thought about because it was before my time, but Belushi is like a good singer and a good performer. And are you talking about where they're wearing the bee costumes?
Well, then when they're doing the bee costumes and he's just doing backflips all over the place.
Dude, he was doing flips, like landing on his back. You know, that's pretty funny. And he did a really good impression of
Joe Cocker.
Then did
it with Joe Cocker, which is like, I feel like that has to be one of the first times that someone is doing an impression of a musician along with the musician. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like when else would there have even been an opportunity for that bit? And now we see it all the time.
I really liked, you know, as a guy who plays in a punk band, I think maybe the funniest sketch ever on SNL for someone like me or my friends or stuff is the fist fight in the parking lot by Crisis of Conformity, where Fred Armisen is at his daughter's wedding, is like getting the old band back together. That's so funny. Like that song is so funny.
It's the least shocking thing to me in the world that is the sketch Sarah Sherman wishes she wrote. Because I'm like, of course it is. Like you're like Miss Punk Rock. Like, of course this was the one you regret it. How about, I mean, again, making you feel like John Belushi was a pretty cool dude. The Fear story that they dive into of only coming back on TV if they would book the band Fear. And like, I got teary-eyed as the lead singer of Fear was starting to choke up just saying like, man, I miss John. Like he changed, what does he say? He's like, he changed my life by insisting that my like obscure little New York punk band got to play on like the biggest TV show imaginable. Like,
that was so cool. And I, you know, obviously speaking of punk rock, I love all the punk rock moments. You know, I love that Questlove highlighted the Sinead O'Connor moment, which is,
I mean, you have to.
In my opinion, that was the most punk rock moment of all time.
And talking about how she faked them out with the fake photo in the rehearsal, like she knew that she was about to blow up everything and did it anyway. And that's as punk rock as you can be.
That, honestly, there has never been a moment in music history more punk rock than that.
Yeah.
Someone saying like, I mean, and with the utmost sincerity in what she was doing. She wasn't doing it because she was trying to, you know, get exposure for herself or something. She was calling out something that she had experienced and trying to change the world in that moment without any regard for how it was going to tank her career or anything like that.
Didn't even do one of her own songs. You know what I mean? Like, I know that's like a weird thing to care about. Yeah. Did an a cappella performance of someone else's song. Dude. It's not even promoting a song that's on a record of, like, you are just making a statement because it is important to you to make that statement. And that's pretty awesome. I mean, we also have to talk about, you and I love Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
The story of them just being like, I love how he says, he's like, you book the fuck you, I won't do what you tell me band, and then you try to tell us to do something specifically. Like,
that's what I don't understand is I want to know whose idea that was. It's almost like they wanted to create that moment. So why are you in crisis mode and having confrontations and tearing down the upside down flags and kicking the band out of there if you knew this is what was going to happen?
It's one of those things where it's like, you can't it's like if you put like 5 rival gangs in a locked room together with a bunch of guns and then complain that there was gun violence. You know, like, it's like you intentionally put a former Republican presidential candidate with the most left-wing band imaginable and didn't expect like there to be fireworks and rebellion behind the seats. Like, what were you thinking?
You put a billionaire with a band of like communists. Like, it's such a strange, like, you had to know that was going to happen. And you almost wonder, like, was this the plan or what?
I
mean, it's funny. Tom Morello said, "Yeah, I went to the party after."
Yeah,
anyway.
I went to the after party. Sure.
Yeah, I would too.
I do love, because I've said this story, the story of Elvis Costello being banned from SNL for the radio thing, but then showing like how many times he's performed on that show.
That one I don't really understand because like, why? Because it wasn't his biggest song?
Well, no. I think what the rumor had been, the rumor that I always heard, is that song Radio is a song that's coming at television and radio for basically giving people the most like safe version of information. Like it's kind of like one of the lyrics is like, I'm going to bite the hand that feeds me. I'm going to bite it so badly. Like it's a song about being like, fuck the radio, fuck television. Like they're trying to force you to like certain stuff. And he was just like, I just wanted us to play an upbeat song. It wasn't about the message of the song. I just thought we were playing a drag of a song on live television.
Right. And even so, isn't SNL supposed to be the counterculture? Even though they
100%.
are TV, aren't they supposed to be the I don't know, antithesis to the mainstream or whatever? I mean, it ain't that now, obviously.
I do love the Lorne Michaels quote, though, where he's like, we've never banned anybody. We're too opportunistic to do that.
Yeah,
like
right.
100%. I mean, look at some of the people that they've had host just because it would get headlines. Like they will jump on any opportunity that they can to get someone out there.
Dude, I got to say, this is one of my problems with Saturday Night Live sometimes is like, you had Donald Trump host.
They had Elon Musk host.
You had Elon Musk host your show. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, that makes me not want to watch it.
Yeah, but in their mind, it got headlines. And those episodes probably got watched more than almost any other episode that season. Because they talked about, like, Adele. It wasn't, I mean, listen, Adele is a hell of a singer. Yeah. But the other big thing was that Adele was on the episode that Sarah Palin was on. And it was like, so many eyes were tuning in to be like, how is Sarah Palin going to react to all of the punches that they've been throwing at her this season?
Right.
So like 1 million eyes tuned in to see what would happen.
Sure.
And then that's what they get out of it. I also have to, like, one of the things that I just had a smile on my face was them talking about the history of Lonely Island on there. Because, like, I just love those three dudes. Like, they still, as famous as Andy Samberg is, he still just seems like the most down-to-earth, approachable dude in so many ways. And, like, it's a bummer because now I feel like since Lonely Island has left, there's been 1 million different people attempting to be the next Lonely Island, and you just can't. Like, I like the Please Don't Destroy guys. They're fine, but they're no Lonely Island. Like, you can't do what Lonely Island perfected.
It's so weird. And I mean, I guess everyone's going to say this about everything ever. But like those three guys, like they're not even in the same like world. Like as far as funniness and creativeness or whatever, I watched those guys' movie, the Please Don't Destroy Us guys movie.
Very mediocre.
Yeah, it's not good. And isn't like one of them or two of them like really majorly like
kind of nepo-y,
nepo babies, for sure.
Well, one of them's oh my god, I can't remember what the name of the skit is. What is the SNL sketch with Adam Sandler and Chris Farley where it's like the Hurley boy?
Oh, right. Yeah. It's really funny.
Yeah, that's the name is making fun of a writer on SNL named Tim Hurley.
Okay.
And one of the Please Don't Destroy guys is Tim Hurley's son.
All right.
So it's
to be fair, that's
not like the biggest name in the world. It's not like he's Keanu Reeves' kid. Or, like, it's not like a major celebrity, but it's a connection.
Yes. And also, the kid probably grew up around comedy his whole life. So he has a leg up just on being good at comedy, probably. So we're not going to... I kind of rescind my comment about that. It's almost like, you know... lately that Gracie Abrams has that really awesome song or whatever, and she's like nepo to the core, you know, like her dad's J.J. Abrams. But to be fair, she's really good.
Well, that's what we said about the Strokes too. Like on paper, we should hate everything about the Strokes, but they still made like 3 really good albums.
Yeah. I mean, What are you gonna do? So talent
but
is talent.
I think what I love though, especially them talking about making like Lazy Sunday and even Dick in the Box, is like you're talking about a story where it's like these three dudes are illegally shooting a video with no permits, doing it like I think one of them says like we like shooting it on our mini DV cameras because it was so lo-fi compared to the high production of the rest of the show. And like I think they said like Dick in the Box, they were like he was up Friday night until Saturday night and basically finished editing it like an hour before they played it in front of an audience. Like it's that scrappy, like that's the stuff that I kind of miss about my college and 20s was like that energy that I think we all had as creatives where like you have this idea and you like shoot it with your friends and you're up until like 4 a.m. getting it perfect to show other people.
That's the thing that I really like about those guys is, hey, when YouTube was first born, I was out on tour with my friends with a mini DV camera and a little shitty Dell laptop, editing videos together and putting them out there and making ourselves laugh. And these guys did exactly that and stuck to it. And I don't know, they kept going with it, and maybe they got a few breaks here and there. That's how life works. And next thing you know, their videos that they're making on their mini DV tapes are being broadcast to the whole country.
Yeah. And like look at it through this lens too. Like the guys in Lonely Island have pretty much exclusively made movies that were box office bombs, despite being some of the funniest movies ever.
Yeah.
But because they're scrappy and came from that background, I'm pretty sure even if you look at all those movies, the budgets were so small that they were able to constantly make back the profits long term. So it's like, if you can do stuff on the cheap, you're going to be fine. Like people will just keep investing in you because it's like, all right, like your movie didn't make $10 billion or whatever, but you made it for $3 million and we made $5 million back on it. Like,
yeah. And dude, you know, I listen to a lot of movie podcasts, and they always talk about like, there's certain golden eras of comedy in film. There was like, you know, the whole Judd Apatow era and stuff like that. But like, I do think that these Lonely Island guys, or Andy Samberg in general, made some of the Hot Rod's one of the funniest movies ever.
Yeah,
I think.
Let's look at the list of movies they made. His main director specifically, Akiva, I think he's the one that does most of it. Akiva did Hot Rod, The Watch, Pop Star Never Stop Stopping.
Pop Star is incredible.
Incredible. He did the Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers movie, which was really fucking good. Like, I'm not sure if you watched that like 2 years ago, but it's great. He was in the Weird Al Yankovic story. He's doing the new Naked Gun movie that's coming out this year. He helped with MacGruber, which is another like incredible movie. Like the end. I mean, it wasn't a Lonely Island specific movie, but like Palm Springs, I think they had something to do with. Unbelievable movie.
Amazing. I can't believe I love that movie so much, considering it's like it's just taking the concept of Groundhog Day kind of and doing it in a different way. But I love Palm Springs. There's something about that movie that like hits me on a like emotional level for some reason. Yeah. Do you get that?
Oh, absolutely. And also, Chris, let us not forget that the other thing that Lonely Island has become producers of is that they produced Pen 15 and I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson.
Really?
Yeah, they're how those shows got released. They were the ones that signed on to those shows as producers to get them out there.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like their fingerprints are on the funniest things of the last like 15, 20 years.
They really are. Wow. We got to give them more credit. They might, dude, adding those two things to the mix. I mean, I Think You Should Leave is the funniest thing probably up to this point. Now, I don't know if in 10 years, maybe, you know, comedy's always evolving. Like now I watch some old Tim and Eric's and I'm like, do I still think this is funny? I don't know. But I Think You Should Leave. It comes up like, you know, portions of I Think You Should Leave that I've seen 100 times at this point that will make me laugh harder now than they did the first time I saw it. You know?
I think the biggest problem, this is going to go back to what we were talking about with the current season of Saturday Night Live, but I think one of the biggest issues that I have this season is that I feel like a lot of sketches are trying to be I Think You Should Leave, but not being Tim Robinson, so not knowing how to do it properly. Like last week, there was the barista sketch where he kept like, instead of doing puns about coffee, was doing like Def Comedy Jam jokes. And I'm like, this is a I Think You Should Leave concept handled by people who don't get why I Think You Should Leave is funny.
You've got a great idea for a small business, but you just can't get it off the ground. You want to be your own boss, set your own hours. Well, new year means new opportunities, and Shopify's got you covered to help get your venture off the ground. Shopify makes it easy to manage your growing business. You can get your store up and running easily with thousands of customizable templates. And they help with the details like shipping, taxes, and payments from one single dashboard. Don't kick yourself next holiday season when your 2025 resolution list looks the same as it does today. Make it happen with Shopify. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/income.
If you had to pick one musical artist to listen to for the rest of your life, who'd you choose? Well, that's a fine thought. The rest of us would pick Willie Nelson. That's why I started the podcast One by Willie, a show in which I talk each week to one notable Willie fan about one Willie song that they really love. We've had guests you'd expect, like Miranda Lambert and Lyle Lovett, and others you might not, like Nick Offerman and Brene Brown. And what we've wound up with are uniquely personal looks at the life and art of a genuine American legend. I'm your host, John Spong. Y'all come check us out.
Hi, this is Chad Nicefield.
And this is Justin Press.
We're the host of Making Waves, the Shiprock podcast, a part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. We're inviting you to sail away with us on an epic journey in musical enlightenment. Every week, we bring you only the best artists in rock music and discuss everything from the cruise, to the stage, to the saga of being a professional recording artist. We'll have lots of special guests along the way, so tune in every week.
Your stateroom is available every Monday morning, so welcome aboard.
Hey everyone, it's Chris Pandolfi inviting you to check out the new season of my podcast, Inside the Musician's Brain, with new episodes airing now.
Hearing it in that room, these guys playing this thing and trying to figure out how to play this song was mind-blowing. It's so inspiring to know there's so much more to it than you ever thought. And it just opened another door.
But when people find faith because they need to, in terms of just filling a void to feel better without actually being better, that's when it becomes a crutch, much like, drugs and alcohol do.
Man, I don't have all the time in the world here. If I want to be a professional bluegrass musician, I felt like I had to take a very strategic approach, just trying to get rid of the barriers and figure out what those barriers were.
The feelings still come and I have to reckon with that, but I think I have better ways of moving forward and not being stuck, which I think was the killer for me.
Catch all that and so much more on the new season of Inside the Musician's Brain.
I don't think it overstates things to say that the Beatles were the greatest gift to entertainment and culture of our time, a secular religion, if you will, with their universal appeal and demonstrable impact on people's lives. I'm Robert Rodriguez, host of Something About the Beatles. With every episode, I speak with historians, musicians, artists, and Beatle witnesses, all in the service of fresh insights into the most joyous cultural entity the world has ever known. I hope you'll join me and listen to Something About the Beatles, now on Evergreen and wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, it's Jonathan London of the Geekscape podcast, and I want to tell you all about the first official Geekscape comic book, Paul London, Hero of the Prophecy. This is equal parts sci-fi fantasy, comedic adventure, and pro wrestling entertainment told in a nostalgic style. If you're a fan of 80s films like Conan the Barbarian, Krull, Willow, The Beastmaster, and comedic mistaken identity movies like The Army of Darkness, Three Amigos, and Galaxy Quest, you're gonna love Paul London, Hero of the Prophecy. That's right, I wrote it about my younger brother Paul London, former WWE Cruiserweight and Tag Team Champion. But in this story, he's now washed up, down on his luck, and then magically transported across the universe to a distant planet of sword and sorcery. Once there, he's mistaken to be the hero of the prophecy, destined to free an entire kingdom from the evil sorcerer Ramzar. This is 26 pages of full-color pro wrestling fantasy comic book adventure. Podcast listeners, this is a comic for you. Go to herooftheprophecy.com to learn more. Paul London, Hero of the Prophecy.
So were there any other big performances that we definitely want to talk about on this special?
Two things. One, I do think it's pretty amazing that Paul Simon performed Still Crazy after all these years in a big turkey costume. Like, do you know that song?
It's a great song, yeah.
Dude, that song's amazing. That's such a good song. I thought that was cool. Obviously, we got to talk about Kanye.
We do have to talk about Kanye. I want to talk about something lighthearted before we dive into the Kanye real quick. Because one of my favorite old bits, there's a couple old bits that they talk about. One of them that I love ever since I saw it on a best of SNL 25-year anniversary thing is the bit that they did for weeks of Lorne Michaels offering the Beatles money to reunite on SNL.
Yeah.
And the way he's just I've got $3,000 here. You get it by singing 3 songs. Come out here. She loves you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's $1,000 right there. The very dry way that he goes through that. And the story that I remember hearing was that when that aired, Paul McCartney was at John Lennon's apartment in New York and they were watching it live and they strongly considered getting a cab and just showing up because they thought it would be funny to show up and try to ask for the money, even though they didn't have George and Ringo with them.
Yeah.
And then they were like, well, we don't want to crash the show. How iconic would it have been if they did that? That would be going down as the greatest musical moment that ever happened in history, right?
If I was famous, I would crash SNL and anything else. Anything I thought was cool.
Yeah.
Because if you get to a point where money isn't something you're thinking about and you're just I can just do whatever I want and have fun, I would definitely, anytime SNL, I'd be yeah, I'll come on whenever, I'll come, especially if you lived in New York. If it's Saturday night.
I love, I was talking about this. Yes, again, I'm going to bring up the Timothée Chalamet episode from last week. But the idea that Lin-Manuel Miranda and Adam Sandler were both there last week for 5 seconds of screen time.
I didn't see it, but sure, why not?
They were just why the hell not? You're in New York, show up and do your thing. The other one that I have to talk about because I used to sing and quote this so much, and I'm glad that they highlighted it. And hearing Eddie Murphy tell the story of how it was created was the James Brown Celebrity Hot Tub sketch.
Oh, yeah.
Which he described as just the writers were stoned and they're like, you do a pretty good James Brown impression. What if he liked hot tubs?
Yeah. Dude, Eddie Murphy, too. It's amazing how, the Stevie Wonder, when he does a Stevie Wonder impression, he sounds great.
We talked about that on the Eddie Murphy episode.
Yeah.
That when he's doing someone else's thing, he's so good. I wish his album was just Eddie Murphy singing like Stevie Wonder for 10 tracks and we would have given it thunder, I think.
Yeah, true.
Also, they talked about comedians. You mentioned the Paul Simon in a turkey costume. I mean, Stevie Wonder agreeing to do a sketch about how easy it is to use a camera.
Yeah.
It was just having these musicians kind of play into the joke. Now, I have to ask you this, Chris, and then we'll jump into Kanye. You mentioned how if you were given the opportunity and they were hey, punchline, now here's the green light, come on and perform 2 songs, you would jump for that. it sounds like anxiety inducing to also do a sketch on the show.
Oh, I would do it in a second though. Are you kidding me? Like, absolutely. And I look, I know I keep going back and forth and saying like, it's not funny or whatever, but like, it is really hard to write comedy. Like, that is a real skill. And you have to write like 8 things that are funny per week and write them completely out. Granted, these are supposed to be the people who are best in the world at this. So,
well, and the story that I forget where I heard the interview, but the story that I remember someone saying was that basically you have Sunday off, you show up Monday, you pitch ideas, they pick like 30 ideas that they like and assign them like 2 or 3 of them to each writer. You spend all day Tuesday writing sketches. You show up Wednesday and you read through like this pile of 30 sketches. You dwindle that down to 15. You rewrite those 15 sketches all day Thursday. You do a dress rehearsal on Friday with those final 15 to determine what will be like the last 8 that make it to air. Sometimes you have stuff that has to be pre-taped, so you're doing all of the pre-taping of those on Friday. You air it Saturday. You're required to go to the after party, so you're at the after party until like 2 or 3 in the morning. So he's like, that Sunday that you have off is like the only day you even sleep the entire week. So like, I get it. Like, it's not just like you're supposed to be the funniest person in writing comedy. You're supposed to be writing timely comedy in a very small time period to like come up with concept, produce concept, make sure that everything is like up to the minute. Like, when you're watching some of these cold opens, like, especially now, God bless them in the Trump era, because you're going to have to be like rewriting jokes minutes before you go on TV, because God knows what he's going to tweet or decision he's going to make right before you go live.
And they are so lucky to have James Austin Johnson.
Oh, he's insane.
They're so lucky to have him, because it's got to be so... I can't imagine trying to write comedy about Trump. It's too... We've talked about this before. It's too what he's already saying is too outlandish. This week, there was a plane rated in a helicopter, and he's blaming it on diversity as to what, like, people are dead. People lost their family members, and that's what, like, you can't even parody that.
Yeah.
It's already so disgusting and ridiculous.
It almost turns into, because I know Seth Meyers does this a lot too, is like, you almost have to step away from what's actually happening and just putting him in the most insane idea you could come up with, where you're just like, it's like, hey, what if Donald Trump was in Rent? You know what I mean? Like, you just have to go like so outrageous, because what he's already doing is beyond outrageous. And on the topic of Donald Trump, Kanye West, boy.
I
mean, we've covered our disappointment in the career of Kanye West, and this SNL really highlights some of those really rough periods that we've been going through the last 10 years with this guy.
I mean, I'll be barely empathetic to the fact that the guy has mental issues. There's a lot of people with mental issues in the world, and I don't think that you can just say that and that's the end of it. I mean, I'm sure he's got a lot of enablers out there. I've been trying to get my buddy to come on my podcast and tell his Kanye story of a firsthand experience, and he's a little worried about doing it just for legal reasons. But I think we're eventually going to convince him to come do it. But Kanye is an awful human being. I mean, even beyond liking Trump at some point or whatever. I don't know if he still does. The stuff is just so uncomfortable and horrible to watch with him. But the one thing he did say where I was like, that's actually kind of funny, even though he wasn't trying to be funny, is that he's like, everyone's telling me I can't be president. I'm stupid for wanting to be president. Well, look at this guy. He's president. Trump's president now. And I'm like, you know what? In all of his ramblings, Kanye has a little bit of a point here, because he couldn't have been a worse president than Trump. Like, he may have been equally as bad, but no one could have been worse.
No.
So it's not like he doesn't have a point about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I feel so bad for, I forget who it is, but it's one of the newer cast members when she's like, he's just ranting and raving, and I don't know how to be on camera and not look like I'm agreeing with it. And she's like, and that's when I looked around and realized that all of the other Black cast members that had been there for years just had walked off stage at that point.
Because that was, I forget what her name is, but that was her first second episode.
Yeah, she's like brand new on the cast.
What are you supposed to do in that instance? And I mean, it's different because she doesn't want to get fired. It's her first week, whatever. But if you're somebody else, how is no one saying something to him?
Yeah.
Like, dude, would you stop talking? Are you afraid he's going to attack you or something?
Well, and I feel like what actually happened, I wasn't watching when that aired, but I feel like they just faded out at some point.
Yeah.
And he just gave his speech for 20 minutes to a audience of basically people just trapped in a room with Kanye West at that point. But yeah. He watching that long rambling rant that he did gave me more of an appreciation for the Bo Burnham thing that he did on his one comedy special, Make Happy, where he does his version of a Kanye West song. But that is what that era of Kanye sounds like now to me, is man, this used to feel really profound, and now it's just nonsense. It's just a man rambling nonsense to hear himself talk. But you know what? That was the thing I will say. I was worried, and I had texted you this. This is a documentary about SNL that's part of Peacock. There's a world where this is just 2 hours of look at how great SNL is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Questlove did a good job of celebrating all of the wins for SNL without shying away from some of the things that they got wrong, how the Sinead O'Connor situation was handled after the fact, giving someone like Kanye a platform. He didn't act like those moments didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you, Chris. Do you consider yourself, I was thinking about this while I was watching it, do you think that you're really susceptible to documentaries? If you're watching it, you kind of just buy into whatever the narrative is that they're telling you? Because I was watching it and feeling hell yeah, SNL's great, but then thinking, well, if someone made another 2-hour documentary that was how terrible SNL has been for music, I would probably watch it and also be yeah, fuck SNL.
My instinct would be to say yes, but I was actually thinking about this yesterday because my buddy Johnny told me about this podcast, and I listen to it now, the Talk to a podcast.
Oh,
where
yeah.
it's just the two comedians talking about the episodes of the, which I don't even think there's been any more Talk to
she's
episodes.
on the run. Jeez.
Yeah, but now the latest episode they listen to is they're talking about her appearance on Bill Maher's Club Random podcast. And it's just so funny because they do it so serious. They do it so deadpan, never break character. But my point being that the reason I think that maybe I can watch a documentary with not being totally susceptible to just falling for it is years ago, Bill Maher, who I think is a total asshole. I don't like Bill Maher. Maybe to a certain extent, we're on the same side of some things, but I think he sucks. Bill Maher is awful. But he made this documentary called Religulous. Did you ever see that
one? Yep, I remember that.
And even me, who is very much not a fan of religion and everything, watched that and was like, man, this dude is just punching down at the dumbest of he's not having a intellectual debate about theology with someone who might be very intelligent. He's going to the backwoods and making fun of people who obviously have something wrong with them.
I had to take when I was in college, I took a documentary journalism class. And the point of those classes was we had to watch like Bowling for Columbine, which is, I think, a very good documentary.
It is.
But we were also supposed to then do our own research on how much of this is like slightly twisted for narrative purposes. How much of this is like kind of and what you end up finding out is like, yeah, like I would say that 75% of that documentary is still very important and factual. There are things that are like being twisted a little bit to fit the narrative. And it's important to anytime you watch any documentary, you do have to go in and be like, who is producing this and what is their thesis, and is there any way that they could be like twisting things to fit their thesis without making up facts? But like, you know, there's a lot of you certainly find it in our news coverage these days. There's a lot to be said by omission of information for context. But I think that this did a great job of really explaining the history and the importance. I loved how many people called out like that Devo performance as just being like one of the most memorable. You know, Dave Grohl says like, I was a weird kid, and that was the first time I saw weird people playing music on TV and being like, oh, cool, I could do this if I wanted to.
Right.
Like,
yeah. I think I will say once again, Questlove is really good at making music documentaries. I would maybe say he's the best music documentarian out there right now. Now, I think that Bill Simmons has been responsible for producing or executive producing, whatever he does, some good music docs too. But Questlove, being a musician, I think approaches them in a very cool and, I mean, stylistically cool too. We both loved that matchup. What a way to start the thing. And I think he kind of just put the facts out there. This is what happened. These are the people who experienced its experiences with it. So I think he did a great job, and regardless of whether we're swayed by other documentaries and stuff, like, I don't know, what are you being swayed by here? That SNL has had a lot of
a lot of iconic performances on it. Yes. I guess is all that matters.
That's it.
And you know what? We'll end with this, combining our two loves, Questlove and the Hard Times. Did you see the headline about Questlove a week ago on the Hard Times? They had the headline, Questlove wonders what he must have done in his past life to be forced to listen to Jimmy Fallon every night for the last 15 years.
Yes. We could end that by saying Jimmy Fallon. Yeah, we had the Jimmy Fallon Mick Jagger thing where I was like,
oof. The only good thing Jimmy Fallon has apparently ever done in his career that benefited me was being part of the 2005 MTV Music Awards and meeting the Lonely Island and telling Lorne Michaels to sign them.
That's cool.
That is the coolest thing Jimmy Fallon has ever done in his career.
I love where he was talking about his thing with Mick Jagger, where it was like looking in the mirror and like doing the same thing. And I'm like, this is a completely average, like what, this isn't that good. And then he walked off and like, the place was just on fire. My heart was beating so much. I mean, people might have been excited because it was Mick Jagger. I don't think it was because of anything you did that was that great.
Yeah, I was going to say, for people who want to trash the 70s sketches, oof.
Yeah,
that Mick Jagger, Jimmy Fallon sketch, which is, did they not do anything about the Blue Oyster Cult cowbell sketch in this documentary? Because that seems like a giant miss for them not to cover that.
That's a good point. I think they may have shown a clip of it in the big mashup in the beginning, maybe?
Yeah, but that is a huge music sketch to like not discuss.
Wow. That's a good point. That, I mean, there was no musician in that. It was Christopher Walken and Will Ferrell and just the song, but it is a musical sketch.
Yeah.
And I would think that that's the number one most recognizable
famous SNL sketch ever. Like among the biggest ones of all time.
Wow, good call that they left that out. Questlove, if you're listening, what the hell, man?
Yeah, what the fuck, buddy? Unless it just was a lot of money to get Don't Fear the Reaper suddenly to be in the playback or something, but who knows? I mean, they had Smells Like Teen Spirit. I'm sure they can afford Don't Fear the Reaper. Yeah. Well, Chris, I'm glad that we were able to do one of these bonus episodes, and, you know, Sunday's the Grammys, so maybe we'll do another one before our next episode comes out on Wednesday.
Let's do it.
One hit is all you need to make the money guaranteed, and you can live off royalties forever. And it makes me wonder, is it just a wonder, or is it one hit thunder?
This is Krista Makes, guitarist and vocalist for Less Than Jake, and host of Krista Makes a Podcast, a songwriting podcast where every week I'm joined by an amazing guest to break down the writing, recording, and release of one iconic song from their career. In our giant evergreen back catalog of episodes, we've had rock legends such as Dee Snider and Huey Lewis, punk rock favorites like Mark Hoppus, Fat Mike, and Brett Gurewitz, and up-and-coming artists of today such as Liz Stokes of the Beths and Genesis Owusu. We've had guests from all genres and styles of music, and I guarantee that if you peruse our back catalog, you'll see several episodes that'll make you say, man, I gotta hear that. Whether you're a fan of music or a creator of music yourself, you'll take away a whole new appreciation for the songs you know and love. Krista Makes a Podcast is available for free on all the places you could possibly listen to podcasts, and new episodes come out every Monday.
Your vision benefits just got even better. Now at Pearl Vision, provide your updated prescription from your new eye exam and get 40% off lenses. Their eye care experts are ready to help you find the perfect pair of glasses that suit your style. Don't wait. Your new look is just a visit away. And they accept all major vision plans. Find your nearest location at pearlvision.com. Some restrictions and exclusions may apply. See participating stores for details.
The number you have reached is 100.7 WMMS.
It wasn't just a radio station, it was a lifestyle.
Cleveland is a rock and roll city for sure.
We're gonna be like Chocolates. Yeah! Down! The Wrath of the Buzzard. WMMS. Cleveland.
The rise and fall of one of the most iconic radio stations in America. Profiles, The Wrath of the Buzzard. PROH Files. Subscribe now wherever you get podcasts.